What is up, everybody? Happy Money, whatever day it ends in, why you're tuning in, and welcome back to another episode of the Win-Win Effect Show, presented by WINJECT Studios. I am your host, Chris Ross, and if you're new to us, welcome. Really excited and blessed to have you here for the first time. The outcome of this show is to inspire and help you, our listeners, to manifest anything you want out of life. How I go about achieving this is with my philosophy: one heartbeat, one mission, one outcome. And that only leads to you adopt the proper behaviors that will take you to another level of thinking. Man, oh man, do we have a good one for you today. For today's episode, I'm excited to share a conversation that I had with one of the industry's best kept secrets and the brain behind so many influential brands and countless industry leaders, the creator of InstaFame Academy, LMA. This impactful conversation is a lengthy one, I will tell you this, but it's so good, you can't chop it up. Today, we unpacked how to create an authentic social media presence and monetize from it, content and repurposing and converting followers into clients that actually buy, and most importantly, how to do it in an authentic, genuine way for you to stand out in the marketplace without sitting on a car or a boat or a yacht that you did not buy. If you are looking to take yourself to the next level, the top 1% of that 1%, perhaps you might want to pay attention. Don't forget to text us at 843-396-2104 and let us know how you felt about today's show. Stand by for a quick message and let's have some fun.
This podcast is part of the WINJECT Studios network, where podcasters come together to focus on community, collaboration, and collective impact. For more information on how to apply to join the network, go to www.winject.com. That's WINJECT.com. If you're ready to make a difference through podcasting, then we're ready to see you there.
What's shaking, world? Welcome to today's episode. I have Miss Vancouver's finest down now in the Arizona area. Are you working on your tan now?
I am working on my tan. I love this. I legit cannot get enough of the sun. Mm-hmm. There's not a single day where I'm not I'm so grateful for the sun.
Bogart told me the other day, he's in obviously Phoenix area, and he said it was snowing the other day.
There was a hailstorm. Yeah, I was out for a run. Yeah, it was. I was like, this is not why I moved to Arizona. What the hell? It was a week where we had nothing.
Bringing the snow with you.
Oh my God! It was a week where we had this weird, it was rain. It was overcast. There was a little hailstorm, but none of it lasts, right? But it then switched recently, probably 4 days ago, and it's just been nothing but sunny skies, and the temperature's been going up, and I'm happy. Right.
I mean, what was the biggest reason why you wanted to move down there in the first place? I mean, for the listener, obviously the listeners will probably just hear the intro afterwards, and we'll go into all of your bio and all the things you've accomplished. And especially, I think we share one love is that you got your Instagram got hacked. Mine got hacked over right before the new year, and I was like, which was kind of really funny because the blue ticks and all those things happen, and then next thing you know, I got hacked, and I was like, well, I'll grow another one. It's fine. I'll grow my podcast one. But that's really, we'll talk a lot about that because that's what you do, and then obviously the company, and there's a lot of different types of depth with you. There's a lot of substance, which is great. And that's one of the reasons why we caught lightning in a bottle the first time we had a conversation on the phone. Just a shout out to Anthony Trucks, just real quick. We're our personal friend, the one that connected us. And anybody he ever points me in the right direction or just introduces me to, I'm like, all right, we're friends for life. Let's rock. So we're good stuff. But thanks for coming on. Just for the most part, there's only one question I normally ask guests just to give the listeners more context behind who you are, what you're about. For the most, if you introduce yourself to someone, I mean, how do you kind of describe yourself and what you do for a living?
So what I would say is hi, my name's Ella. So what I do is I work with businesses and entrepreneurs that have been very successful, either pre-social media or without social media. I help them take all that copy, all those funnels, all that content, put it into social in a way that connects with their audience and turn it into a revenue stream. And then I also have a group program that helps entrepreneurs, business owners learn how to grow and monetize their social media presence from the ground up.
Right. So growing it from the ground up, I mean, obviously what you do is very, It's very methodical breakdown if you look at it in a certain way.
Yeah.
How do you kind of describe that to someone? Because I know a lot of entrepreneurs that don't like to do social media and don't like to leverage it, but they feel that they have to just because of the fact that everyone's on it and you have to leverage it like a tool, but that some of them don't think of it like a tool. Do you kind of describe that to them? It's like in showing them how lucrative could it be for their business?
Look, I started my entrepreneurial career as a copywriter, right? I learned copy from one of the greats, and I was really happy as a freelancer, and I was just doing my own thing. And social made its way very organically into my business. And so now, but because of my copy background, it's something that I look at with a lot of strategy. And like you said, like when I'm working with people that have been very successful, either pre-social or without social, sometimes they have followings by default, but I promise you, these are the people that hate social the most.
Yes,
they
100%.
hate it. So we always have to have this little come to Jesus talk where I'm like, listen, I promise you figured out harder things than this. It's okay. Like, we're going to make this work. But the thing about with those people, like you would be, you've used social, but let's say you hadn't, you would fall into that category. If you're spending money on anything in your business, especially a marketing channel, you need to see results in 3 months or less.
Yeah,
bottom
I have
line.
to. I would say even before that, I have to look at it in a bird's eye view and saying, okay, what is the possibility in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Where do I track the metrics? I look at things, the outcome on the outside of it, then I work myself backwards and reverse engineer it. I'm just like when you were mentioning, I was just like all the other entrepreneurs. It was like, I don't need that shit. I don't want to do it. I don't have the time. But that's a limiting belief. I don't have the time. I'll make the time for what's important for my business. You see my point?
We make the time, right? But yeah, you need to see results because like, it's not like you're a solo, like you've got partners, maybe you've got a team, you've got like every dollar needs to be doing what it, something that helps the business. So when I look at social, I look at it very systemized in the sense that, okay, A, B, and C, what platforms do we need to focus on? Where's the main, like, where are we bringing people to? How are we getting them into conversation? How are we bringing them off of social into a more intimate environment? From there, what's their journey? All the way to, when you're reaching the right audience, helping them with what you have to offer. Most people out there, like most like ethical entrepreneurs that I encounter, I know that there's people who would remortgage their house to work with them, but they don't know they exist yet. And that's what happens when you're not using social as a tool. And it's a time suck. Essentially, you're like, if you're full disclosure, if you're spending more than a minute a day scrolling on Instagram, you're doing something wrong. Like, I'm a drug dealer. I don't get high on my own supply.
I love this shit. I love this. All right.
If you're spending more than a minute scrolling, looking through the first thing I tell people is turn off all your notifications. You're in charge.
100%. What is your problem? Like, I look at social media once a day, and that's at 9:30 in the morning when I'm looking at reports, not social media. But they put all the data there on that spreadsheet for me to track the numbers and engagement and figuring out, okay, that post didn't work here, this post. And I have a team that runs it. So I just kind of oversee it to make sure nothing really jumps out to me and there's a huge problem.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
I mean, so when you're looking at it that way, and yes, 100% correct. You can't get high on your own supply, right? That's the number one rule. So if you're looking at
being a drug dealer, my friend,
but when you're looking at it in a different way and looking at the numbers and reports and what's actually possible, what's not, some people, when they look at it, they go, it's too time consuming. I need to have certain things in place to ensure that we're driving them there. Have you met George Bryant yet?
I haven't, no.
George is phenomenal. He ex-military, he's cookbook, has had over 1 million followers in driving and different blogs. Now he does a lot more marketing. He speaks with entrepreneurs on a high level, that teaching them that relationships beat algorithms. He's got a real deep message. He does things night and day, different compared to, I would say, 90% of marketers out there. You have to have he's got a great podcast, Mind of George, which is pretty funny. So I like it. I was like, that's kind of scary. Anyways, but we got connected through two of our personal friends, Joe here, Matt Wolf from Hustle and Flowchart podcast. They introduced me and him, and they put us together, and they're like, Chris does things night and day compared to all the other salespeople out there, and it's made his bones in entrepreneurship that way. And he does it this. Well, we jumped on a phone. We caught lightning in a bottle, and we were talking about some other things that a lot of people didn't know on how to leverage certain things where you need to give them content, but giving them the right content that drives them and turns them into a conversation. And you just touched on that. And that's why I wanted to talk about real quick. How hard is that to teach?
There's layers to it, right? Okay. It completely, there's the human aspect where it depends on how comfortable you are on camera. Like if I tell you to go live right now, will you do it? And would it be a comfortable experience for you? For most people, that's no. That's the one thing working with higher end business owners, that's not a problem. Yeah. They know how to go on camera. They know how to turn, they just need direction. And
what are we talking? What's the outcome? What's the outcome? And what are we talking about? That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Turn the damn thing on. Turn it on.
They just need direction and they need their team trained, essentially, right? Yeah. So what I think for me personally, I always have looked at social through this lens of like, can I, if I,
oh yeah, no, I say bad words in my sleep.
Okay.
So we're good.
I always look at social through this lens of like, holy shit, what an incredible connection. Like, okay, think about it. Like I'm 32 right now. Think about it. When I was like 13, 14, the only way you could ever get in touch with public figures was through those super scammy contact any celebrity websites.
Right, or write them a letter. Yeah.
Call someone, right? Now, like you could get in touch with a rock if you have good timing. Like it's phenomenal, right? So I've always looked at it as like, holy shit, we have this big wide world open. Like we're live on Clubhouse right now. This is another massive tool. Who knows? I don't even know if anybody's listening, whatever. If they are, cool. But it's a massive tool.
If they are, hello.
If they are, hello, thank you for listening.
Things Clubhouse people say.
Things Clubhouse people say, right? Now we have this crazy tool where you can connect with anybody. Like I got my first very high-end client through Instagram and through nurturing that relationship. And it's just such an incredible way to A, create relationships and strengthen them. And B, get in touch with people that genuinely need, not like want, but need what you have to offer.
Love it.
That never would have found you otherwise. So
you know what I love about your approach, not to cut you off, just to touch on one thing you said, and I think it's valuable information for anyone listening, tuning in. I don't give a shit. This is valuable for anybody that wants to do business with anybody. I don't care if it's social media or not. How to approach a major influencer or how to approach someone of influence and having an ambassadorship behind them, you need to bring them something of value. I cannot tell you how many people reach out to me and ask me for shit. Don't ask me for anything if you're not bringing me anything in return. Like, what are you? I mean, you need to look at the business, look at what I'm doing. I actually had someone recently, I haven't used LinkedIn since I left. I'm a corporate America dropout. Okay. So when I left corporate America, and I know we both are, right? So when I left there, I really haven't warmed up my link. I got probably 13,000, 14 people, 1,000 or whatever on LinkedIn. I haven't even talked to these people in forever. So now I'm starting to focus a little bit more on LinkedIn. I got a message and the guy who sent me a message goes, Chris, I would love to show you and teach you have you be a part of this program and take this course on emotional intelligence. I'm like, motherfucker, like, do you need to do Google or something? You know what I mean? Like emotion. That's what I do. You know what I mean? Like, I taught like corporations this stuff, you know, like I was so disappointed by that. And I normally don't respond to those types of messages. Cause I'm like, It's not worth my time, but I had to respond and I was like, this is how you normally would approach someone like this. And it's not even me or making myself sound great. I was like, this is how you approach someone in the future on LinkedIn. Hey, I was looking at your content. I was listening to this. You said this really interests me. I might have an opportunity that potentially we can collaborate on and seeing how I could benefit you. Would you like to jump on a call for 5 minutes? Bam.
Can I give you like a alternative formula to this using Instagram that's worked really well?
100%, please.
Yeah, because LinkedIn for me has gotten so spammy lately. Like I just kind of delete my inbox every 3 months because it's all like, work with me. Okay. So let's say you're somebody, let's say I was, because I'm a newer, like compared to you, I'm a newer entrepreneur, right? I'm still building myself up. So let's say I wanted to get in touch with you, but we don't know each other. Let's say we don't have any mutual friends, right? I know that anybody who is any sort of a public figure has a following. I know because I do what I do. 99% of their inbox is asks. Hey, Chris, can you listen to my podcast? Can you be my guest? Can you blah, 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 right? 0.6% is probably exposure, like people just sharing your stuff with asking nothing in return. And 0.4% is people adding value. So giving you something, right? So these people who give you exposure, because we're in business, we know that exposure is just as valuable as money. There's a lot of noise out there. So people giving you exposure really send out, people adding value really send out. Here's the trap you can get into when you try to add value right away. Or like, even if it's a really good idea of collaboration, say, Chris, we did it on a 5-minute call or whatever, is you don't really know what's happening in that person's world and that person's business. And you
100%.
kind of run the risk of them being like, oh, hey, that's nice of you. Thanks for reaching out. But truly, that's not a focus right now. And you kind of run the risk of being ignored after that because they think you're constantly going for the ask of their time. So what I would do to start, and this is, I've gotten clients this way, I've created relationships this way. First thing you do is give them exposure. Okay. But what I mean by that, if you go to your podcast, you screenshot it, you put it on your Instagram stories, you tag them, you say, this was a great episode. That's it. When you do that, let's say I'm doing that with you, right? So I do that. Now Chris has a DM in his inbox being like, Ella mentioned you in a story. So that's just nice, right? I'm not asking for anything. I'm just giving you exposure. You're going to like it. Maybe you'll reply, maybe you won't. But I'll keep, like, I've done this 12, 14 times before somebody actually looks at it. Then they're like, holy shit, who are you? So like, I'll just keep doing it until I kind of catch their attention. Then they'll usually reply and be like, hey, dude, thank you so much for sharing. I'm so happy that this is reaching you. Or even better, this is an even better way to get people's attention, especially the really successful ones. Take one of their concepts, edify them, implement it, and show your journey.
There we go.
New stories showing, hey, I decided to do this like Ella's free book thing that Joe Polish taught me about, or I decided to do this, whatever, and show your journey. There's so few people that actually take what's taught and really implement it. That stands out, right? So all you're doing is adding value to them. You're just adding value, by giving them exposure. You're not asking for any time. You're not asking to come into their ecosystem at all. You're just giving them exposure. At one point, they're going to notice. They're going to be like, oh my God, okay, thanks. This is awesome. Like, you're so whatever. Then what you do is you reply with a voice message. Okay.
Yes.
Because
Beautiful. Love that.
This humanizes you. Plus, they can hear you. We tell so much from voice. Why Clubhouse is going up right now. We tell so much from voice. So you reply with a voice message being like, no problem. Look, I love your stuff. Thank you for doing what you do. And hey, is there anything you would recommend I check out? Or is there anything that you think would be a good idea? So you're asking them a very easy question. They can answer in 2 seconds. They don't have to look at anything. They don't have to whatever. They're like, oh man, I just did this podcast interview. Watch for it. It's coming out. It was dynamite. Or like, check out this one that I did, or whatever it could be. Right. So then you go to that one, you share some more. So essentially what happens is you start to open up a dialogue. Okay.
Yes.
And as this evolves, and again, here's the kicker though. If you are doing this with any sort of an agenda, people can smell this.
Oh yeah, a mile away. Yeah.
This has to be with the mindset of, hey, I don't care if I work with this person now in 10 years or never. It's just somebody I want in my corner. They seem like good people. They seem like somebody I would like to connect with. Just touch points. Yeah. Exactly, right? So you're going to start to create these touch points. And as you start to build that rapport, you'll like just get insight. Because a lot of the time with these really, like, let's say you're trying to get higher end clients and someone really successful, a lot of the time their business is running quite well. Like maybe everybody has holes, but it's running pretty smooth. But maybe they have a passion project that hasn't gotten off the ground because it's all their money.
There's levels to it, just like levels to what you get to. You need to put in the work and the groundwork and putting in your dues on certain levels. You can't just reach out to, I don't know, Elon Musk. You just mentioned him just now, and he was on Clubhouse last night. It blew everything up, right? So you can't just go cold turkey to someone that I would say go reach out, find out who their assistant is, find out who there is, be friends with them.
Get in proximity. Absolutely. Yes. Right.
Get around, just get in the conversation around them.
Yeah. So this is what happened with my first high-end client is, so we had this conversation over like 6 months over Instagram, right? And and we would talk 3 times a week, then we didn't talk for a month, then it would pick up again. Like it was just really chill. And then I found out that he had this passion project that he started talking about. I basically took on the initiative to like take some of the videos, repurpose them for him, etc. And I emailed them to him. I was like, oh, hey. And then I pinged him on Instagram, being like, hey, I just sent you an email. I just repurposed some of these videos. Like I'd never been on a call with this person. They've never paid me. I didn't, whatever. I look at my Instagram an hour later, I have 8 voice messages and he's recording one being like, hey, okay, I like this first video. Here's an idea for the caption. And so I'm like, I'm just typing back being like, cool, keep them coming. And he was like, hey, look, are you around? Can you jump on Zoom right now?
Right.
I was like, yeah. So I jump on Zoom with this person. He's like, look, I have 400 emails. I have no idea why I opened yours, but this is dynamite. Right. And I was like, holy shit, look at the power of social. Right. And so it's one of those things where like it's so much better to have that relationship over time, and it will have so much more depth, and it'll be a stronger bond when you're going at it with this slow and steady approach and using social that way for connection.
Right. I have, it was funny that you're telling this story, and I haven't thought of this since it happened. I was on an interview and I was interviewing a guest, two guests. They're probably, it's actually the same people I was talking about. Joe Fier and Matt Wolf. They came onto the Women Effect, and I was interviewing them, and I just happened to mention, because there were two, the dynamic of them were different. One of them does one great, as in communication, really setting up and relationships, long-term relationships, making them feel like family. Other person, a little bit more of the analyst and the strategist behind, and that dynamic works. And I was saying that I haven't seen it a lot with 2 dudes, but I've seen it with like 2 women that could work in that type of dynamic. And I mentioned that what I do for a living is obviously a high emotional intelligence, developing that emotional intelligence. I learned at a very young age where I was communicating with my sister non-verbally, and that's a whole different story. But I was saying that this decade is a decade for women entrepreneurship, just because they're a little bit more in tune with their emotions, not just theirs, but they know and sense through bullshit, and they can sense it really quick. You know what I mean? They're attuned. They're a lot more aligned to listen to their intuition, and especially when it comes to business, they're already killing it. I remember saying it, and then my team sent an edit of something in the podcast, like clip. This is when I had my personal IG before I got the Chris Ross one, but they clipped the video of that. I was like, I want you to clip the video of this, what I'm saying. And and Carolyn did this, and Carolyn will remember. She went through every female entrepreneur, like not the higher ones, right? Not the ones that are like $100 million and Oprah and shit like this. You know what I mean? The ones that, obviously are like rising, like guys in 20, 30 entrepreneurs, like I was on Forbes thing. What is it? Business Council. So reaching out to those and tagged them on it. And when she tagged them, now I got their interest and I got on their radar. And once I got on their radar, then my team I started strategically putting posts together and tagging them, and they started resharing it, putting in their stories, because I had a huge following. I had them, not just followers, I had ambassadors brought behind me. It was like, they're real engagers. So they saw that, and they saw through the consistency of my content that made them want to come on the show.
Exactly.
Right. So, and I love that you just said that just then, because a lot of people, they're not going to do it for one reason: time. But time is the only non-renewable resource. That's why you need to put in the time and the work to get there. You can't just say, I want to be.
Well, and we're like, sorry to cut you off. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
And we're kind of fed this like the biggest lie we're told on Instagram is you need to post in order to get followers. Such a lie. Posting gets you in front of your followers. It very rarely gets you new ones. You don't need to post 3 times a day. You don't need, that's really unnecessary. What I really, because again, like I work with busy people, what I really encourage is there's probably something you're doing once weekly that you would, it could be your podcast. It could be a live training. It could be it could be anything, right? Is use that, go live on Instagram while you're on your computer, or go like whatever. And use that for as many social platforms as you can live, because why not? It's great for your algorithm. People can jump in. It can create a lot of community. And then take that piece and repurpose the shit out of it. Right. Like you can get a month's worth of content. Like I could probably get a month's worth of content from this interview, right? Just by grabbing clips of it, and maybe I do a little bit of a longer video on one concept because it got a lot of questions or whatever it could be. But you don't, like, we look at it as this monster, like, oh my God, it's such a time suck, it's such whatever. It's like, dude, like you could, with what you're already doing, plus an additional, let's say 15 minutes to actually do the post and write the caption, whatever, you could be creating a really cool presence. And more importantly, like reaching the people that really need you.
But they need to hear it. They need to hear the message. Yeah, 100%. And rewarding those, but they actually reshare it and giving it to them. Right. So
exactly.
What I do love about behind that way of thinking, I've actually would listen to, I can't remember who it was. Because I would speak a lot of events, and COVID shit happened, and obviously you see a lot of event speakers. They come and they're now doing a lot of podcast content. Yeah, Brian Bogart, obviously the guy that I was going to connect you to in Phoenix area, he's doing some massive things. Human behavior specialist, but there's some events people, there's speakers. They go, I don't want to go on podcasts because then they can take my stuff. That means you don't have enough depth. But yes, I think that's the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. That means you only have one pitch. I mean, you think that you just woke up, you invented the whatever you're talking about. You had to learn this information somewhere, correct? What makes you special, or makes Ella special, you are your own unique special individual, and that's your missing ingredient is you. Not my content. They've been stealing my shit for years. I don't give a shit. Every time I'm putting it out there because I'm documenting my journey and I'm blazing through the levels.
Yeah.
And you just got to continue to keep getting better, that 1%. And when you hear a lot of these people talk about that, it's, I met so many great entrepreneurs and so many great, even athletes, so many great people, just high achievers. And there's only a certain pattern of behavior they follow. And so it's like, it's not that really complex to be, that top 1% of the 1%. It takes effort and having the right attitude. Would you agree?
Oh God, absolutely. Yeah. What I've seen is people will pay for intimacy, not information.
Okay. Love that. Say that again. They love that. Yeah.
People will pay for intimacy, not information.
Boom, boom, boom.
Like, here's the thing. Anthony Trucks, for example, like one of my biggest mentors, he's been with me since before I had a website. Like I was such a baby when I first started working with him in the entrepreneur world. And oh my God, that man is so patient and so kind. Like I just can't say enough good things about him. But I originally met him at an event where he was speaking. We met kind of briefly. And then we connected on social, and I got his $1,000, one of his entrepreneur courses, right? Truthfully, like everything in that course is what I needed. But I knew, I'm like, holy crap, if I get this from his course, imagine what I get from working with him.
Yes.
Right? Like imagine what I get. And so I reached out to him and was like, what would it look like for us to work together in a coaching relationship? And he was like, well, truthfully, I'm happy to work with you, but you have the course. And I was like, no, I know, but I need the human aspect. Like I need,
because you know what you need. Everybody knows what they need, their intuition, right? So like you give me a bunch of like paperwork and stuff. I'm like, nope. You give it to me in audio form or something like I'm all on it. But go ahead, please finish. I love this.
Yeah. And that was 2 years ago. So I guarantee you that information is probably now on his YouTube. It's probably now like, and it's one, like we have so much information out there that you need to stand out. Like you need to stand out as somebody who just pours value. Because if people don't work with you, that's fine, but you'll be regarded as the expert in your space, and they'll look at you that way, and you're gaining expertise, you're gaining notoriety. And I think I don't run into it very often, but when I hear people say, oh, hey, like, I don't know if I should put this out there because it's my best stuff. This is what I charge for. I'm kind of like, oh boy.
Well, yeah, that's a huge red flag for me.
Huge red flag.
And you can see it even through the content that they hold back and are only surface level. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, I know you've seen. I mean, you've worked for one of the big. I'm not going to name drops, right? But you work with some bigger names in the industry, especially of you honing in on your craft and really trying to shedding the layers and getting to the true essence of you and figuring out, okay, what does Ella want to do? Right? What do I want in my life? And when you're exposed to that type of way of thinking, you can't go back. So when I hear someone say something in that nature, then I'm like, what the fuck? Okay, whatever. You're only going to be on that level. You're only going to get there, and you wonder why you're not getting here.
And like, look, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, I've said this,
It's
cool.
okay. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah.
It's just a sign of a scarcity mindset.
There we go. Thank you.
And we all like shit, man. I'm still getting over stuff that's has to do with scarcity. Like, we all deal with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a sign of like, I feel like there's not enough to go around. If I give this away, I won't get a client. Like, it's this scarcity mindset, and it's like one of the things about entrepreneurship will humble the shit out of you.
Oh, like, hell yes.
Oh man, like every insecurity, every worthiness issue, you have everything. You face it front and center. Like, it is. I imagine kids would be similar in terms of like a rock to your life, but I don't have kids, but I imagine it'd be similar. So what?
But the only bad thing is in entrepreneurship, you can't get ugly baby syndrome with your business. You see what I'm saying? Like, look at my business. It's so pretty. It's so great. I feel like it looks like shit.
I feel like I love ugly baby syndrome in my business before. And like. I want to burn this thing to the ground and go live under a bridge. Just done. Oh my god. Oh, I feel like I've had that before. But no, like, you're gonna face every insecurity, every worthiness issue, every fear, and it's just showing this is one of your fears. Right. This is one of your insecurities, that you're living in this kind of scarcity. There's not enough frame of mind, and it has to switch.
Right. And I'm really glad that you expanded on that, because it's 100% true. We've all been there. It's just levels to it. We've all been there. I've been there this feels like 2 lifetimes ago, when I was selling internationally and I had a sales team underneath me, and I didn't want to share exactly what we were doing, but where I lost sight of and I didn't get to understand yet, because I wasn't exposed to that way of thinking, was that, okay, if I share this, then they're going to do that. But that's you're the missing ingredient. I can give you all the tools in the world that I use. You're not going to be able to utilize those tools all the way to the highest level and getting the numbers that I'm getting, but just because of the fact that I'm the mind behind that system that made it work. You know what I mean? So there's 2 sides of that coin. However, there might be a person that invents a system and just takes it to a whole different level. Yeah. And like, i.e. was that guy, Tom from MySpace, and he got Mark Zuckerberg, took it to a whole different level, because obviously he was seeing something different. But that's what it's all about, is people need that valuable, like, proof. Like, this is proof this works. And that's where I see a lot with social media, especially Instagram. They can see it works. And that's the proof. But they need to see that proof, or do you? I can visualize it 3 or 4 steps ahead, and I don't need to see it happening right now, because I know it's going to work. Or is that just mindset?
I think the belief factor is real. Like, okay, think about it, right? In 2002, when Facebook was just being used for college kids, like, I didn't even find out about Facebook till like 2004 or something, right? I was even later than that. I think it was 2008 for me. It took a little while for it to gain traction, right? But 2002, when Facebook was being used for college kids, and it was just this Harvard thing. Do you think if Mark Zuckerberg, I don't know if he had the vision then, but do you think if he would have gone to, let's say, somebody with experience, credentials, money, whatever, and been like, hey, I'm going to invent this thing. Here's how it's going to work. And here's how it's going to be $1 billion. And he tried to explain ads and how, like, that person would have been like, you're out of your fucking mind.
It's little by little. It's little by little, right? Yes, little by little. I can't come to you and be like, okay, this is what it's going to look like in 5 years down the road. Yeah. I know it's going to look like by next week, because from the level of you putting in that work and trying to measure and reassess your results and trying to visualize 5 to 7 steps ahead, you can make a shift in the next week and go, all right, I'm thinking way too fucking small, and here's what's possible next week.
Yeah.
So and just shock the shit out of yourself. Yeah. Love it.
Totally. I think that belief factor is key, that if you think you've really got something and everybody's telling you you're bananas, like, you're in good company, and maybe you're bananas, or maybe you've really got something, like, who knows, right? But and I have such respect for these visionaries that are, it's, for example, like Elon Musk was live on Clubhouse the other night, and he was talking about how they were doing these simulations with monkeys where they were having them play video games with their brain. Like, they actually had stuff hooked up, and they were thinking, and they were showing increased levels of dopamine, increased levels. And it's like, oh, cool. There's all these, I mean, I don't know where that's going, but it could be something really neat, right? Like around virtual reality, around AR, around whatever. So like with these visionaries, I have such a huge admiration for them because it's really cool. So I think, yeah, like when you know, if whether there's a proven roadmap or whether it's something where you're like, I don't know that, I don't even know if this would work, but I see it and it's real to me the same way like this microphone is real right in front of me. There might be something there, and it might not be what you think, but
question their own reality from it. I'm like, because I don't think that's real or what's possible and what we can actually do on the growth side. People sometimes when they want to take action on things, they need to see that valuable, proof. I'm like, okay, this is real. This is this. Well, I just need to move that needle just a little bit.
Yeah.
That's enough for me. I don't need to see the end result. Because the outcome that I'm searching for, I just want to continue to keep growing. What I'm chasing is that freaking target. And I'm doing that through my task. So like, perfect example, you can't see on the other side of this room right now in my office. There's boards all on the side behind these monitors. And every day I have certain tasks that are going to get me to the targets and get me to the overall outcome. Okay. Some days I don't hit those tasks to get those targets, and that outcome isn't going to change. The next task and a target will change to make sure I'm making up for that mishap or whatever. And then it's going to get me there. So that's what I see a lot with, I wouldn't say younger entrepreneurs, but I say entrepreneurs are not putting in the extra hours into their own craft and being alone in their own thoughts and understanding themselves of how they need to work, right? Like they don't understand how even their own mind works.
Dude, you touch on something so big there. Like being alone in your own thoughts when you're an entrepreneur is like the equivalent to like death. Like it's especially in that, like when I see it's, oh man, and this just breaks my heart because I know it's necessary, but I know the struggle of it is, especially when I see new entrepreneurs and they really have they have the capability, they've got the core skill sets to make it. And they're in that place where they're like, holy shit, I can't spend an hour waking, not worrying about my business. And I don't even know if I'm doing the right things. And it's like, you're in the hardest part of the hardest part. Like I promise, like it's so incredibly hard on your nervous system to do this crazy thing we do that makes us want to run a business. So I think that like, I mean, coaches, I don't know. I was a competitive athlete when I was younger. As a competitive gymnast.
I'm still competitive. I'm just competitive in different areas now.
Yeah. Like I was as a gymnast and I showed horses and all this stuff. So I think I was just used to having a coach. Like I never really thought that there would ever be an area of there was an area of my life I really wanted to improve on, I would just get a coach. I would hire a trainer. I would do whatever. So like Anthony was my first coach. And then that what really
a great first coach, by the way. And if you're listening to this, bro, love you, man. But what a great first coach. Like that dude is 100% authentic and genuine. There's nothing fake. There's no smoke mirrors. There's no fucking flash bulbs going off. He's just real.
And what's so cool is I've been in business. I've been full time in my business over 2 years now. And I've never stuck with one coach in almost anything this long, but his ability to teach and like, I didn't know how far ahead. I mean, I knew he was really successful, but I didn't know how far ahead he was, obviously, when I first started working with him. And I look back now and I'm like, you were so patient with me. Like, and it was,
you respect him even more. Yeah.
And I was, and then around mindset and stuff, like I remember having conversations with him where I'd be like, I'm just freaked out that I'm not doing good enough for my clients. And they're going to, I'm not, I could be doing better and blah, blah. And he would just be like, dude, you're talking as if you can't get new clients, or you're talking stuff I never would have caught. Right.
That's the whole thing though, is that we're so passionate and we speak with authority. We're speaking with so much behind us because we're very driven individuals, especially if you're competitive. I don't think I've met an entrepreneur that's not competitive. So people say, I'm not competitive. You're full of shit. So when you're that driven on something, but you're too close to it to see, you're standing too close to the TV. You're like, I don't know. I can't see the shit. You got to move back a little bit. And if someone's been exposed, I think success is all about exposure for those who make the right decisions and choices at the right time. So you're holding yourself accountable to those. But the only time that you're going to be able to understand that, you got to be alone.
Yeah.
Like I don't touch my phone first 3 hours of the day. I don't touch any technology.
Yeah.
Zero.
Nothing.
Zero. This is where all these ideas and shit come from. Right? So, and then I'll walk into my office. No shit. There's 2 hours of every night after dinner and after I shut down and all that good stuff. I come back in my office, make sure I got things and okay, what am I doing tomorrow? First thing is, and I write everything out, have a measure and recess. I don't do any emails or any of that. I'm looking at numbers, looking at goals, looking at tasks and whatnot, what I need to strategize on. I walk back in the next morning, but this is after I wake up, go through my daily ritual, habits, putting myself in the right frame of mind to be able to serve in the capacities that I'm trying to get to. Then I'm able to get myself 100% ready. And I walk in the office and go, what the was I thinking last night? Right? Why is this task here? Do you see my point? I went to bed. Yeah, I went to bed and grew by the time I got back into my office, my mindset.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, I heard one of the best quotes, but sort of sayings I ever heard was from Joe Polish, where he was saying, look, you can't read the label from inside the jar. Yes. And it's so true, right? Mm-hmm. Like we can't see what, we can't see it when we're in it sometimes. But yeah, no, I mean, like one thing I'll do a lot, and this has been, I've had 2 people talk to me about this. One, this guy, David, who's awesome, I connected with very recently, brought this up. And a shaman that I worked with about 1.5 years ago is using dream time. So there's actually quite a bit of like the physicist who invented the periodic table that came to him in a dream. There's actually quite a few cool stories of people who have used sleep to make some cool uncoveries. So one thing I'll do before I go to bed, and I have like a reminder in my phone that goes off just so my phone goes on do not disturb automatically at like 8 p.m. But I have one that goes off and sometimes I see it, sometimes I don't. But
actually 9. Mine's at 9. Right at 9. Whoop. I don't.
Yeah. Mine goes on and it stays on do not disturb, I think till 9 a.m. But is before I go to bed, I'll be like, all right, brain, we're gonna have a dream tonight. And in this dream, and I'll say this out loud, in this dream, can you help me clarify whatever? You can't really ask for can I tell you a funny story about this?
No, I swear to God, I'm like, did I tell you something similar like this?
No,
I don't tell myself about dreams. I've studied a lot about dreams, but go ahead and tell the story, please. Love this. I love this.
Story about the first time I did this. All right, so I connected with this shaman, and which was really cool. It was the first time I talked to a shaman, and he, one of the things that was the biggest standout is he was like, "Hey, I want you to use dream time," and it was basically this concept. I was like, "Okay." And then I was talking to one of my friends who's a hypnotherapist, and she had also worked with the shaman. And I was like, hey, what did you get from, the shaman? And she's like, well, the biggest thing for me was dream time. I'm like, dude, me too. That's what, okay. I was like, okay, cool. Let's do this tonight. Let's do this tonight. And let's talk tomorrow and let's see what happened. All right. She's like, yeah, okay, cool. So I go to bed that night and I go like, all right, brain, I'm going to have a dream. I did like a brain universe, whatever you want to say. All right, I'm going to have a dream. And I think I said, in this dream, can you help me clarify how to reach my audience with impact or something? I go to sleep. I wake up. And the only thing I can remember is that the Taylor Swift song, You Need to Calm Down, was playing. I'm like, well, that's fucking bullshit. Like what? Thanks. So my friend Penny, who's a hypnotherapist, she texts me. She's like, hey, did you use dream time? I'm like, yeah, but it didn't work. Like that stuff sucks. And she's like, what do you mean? She's like, what do you mean? I could be a little dramatic sometimes. She's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, look, here's what I asked. And the only thing I remember is the Taylor Swift song, You Need to Calm Down, was playing. And she's like, dude, hold on. Like, you're here, like you're missing it. Like it's saying like, slow down, give something actionable, implementable, give a smaller bite-sized chunk. I'm like, oh, okay. So then I was like, okay, well, like, shit, why not? Let's see. So I think I put something out on my Facebook group that was like, hey, here's something you can do today, right now, to improve your social presence.
Love that. What you did just then, just for the listeners to understand this, she put it out, what she already learned, and she hasn't even figured it out yet. This is huge for entrepreneurs, especially younger ones that don't know what you're talking about. Get an idea. You don't need to have that idea mapped out all the way perfect and pristine. Get that shit out there and then let your community help you work it out.
Yeah. So like 2 people commented on, so I put like a little quick tip, right? Whatever. It's like, okay, something small, implementable, actionable. I can do that. 2 people commented on it. One of which I jumped on the phone with like a week later because we kept a conversation going, and she became a year-long one-on-one client, one of my favorite clients ever. And the other one I connected with like 6 months later, and she ended up coming into my group program. And both of them I'm good friends with to this day. And I was like, That's so interesting. So yeah, it's these. So I find with using stuff like that, like around dream time, it's really, really helpful if you have somebody that you can bounce, because they're not always going to make sense to you. Like I was talking about this with one of my friends the other day, and he's like, dude, I was on a boat. It was sinking. I was on blah, blah. And I'm like, well, what to do with this? And like, it's helpful to have that outside view. Because they're very often they're not very linear, not very clear to you. But again, you can't read the label from inside the jar, right?
No, you can't. No, I love what you're saying with just that one piece. I'm going to add something to this. And just to give the listeners a little bit more, because I have talked about this a lot with previous guests. And yes, they might have studied the neuroscience and the neurochemistry, and you can rewire your brain, especially if you're focusing on the gratitude and focusing on all the things you're grateful for at night. I still do it now. And then I do the same thing when I very first wake up, but I want to be alone in my own thoughts and kind of like break down, why am I feeling this? What am I feeling? It talks about that. I've learned how to slow down time. And that's the neocortex, the frontal lobe part of your brain. That's what conscious, for those that don't understand, is conscious and unconscious part of your brain. That shit shuts off at nighttime, all the way down to dials all the way down. Why it's important, it dials it down. That's where the other part of your brain, I call it the librarians, on just filing all the information and data that you learn subconsciously and unconsciously all day. That's why it's important for you to get a night's sleep. You don't need to sleep 8 hours. It's up to you and how much energy you actually, I guess you would say, recycle and then also use throughout your day. And that's what I mean by recycling. So this phone is off charger right now. Okay. It's going to die at some point, correct?
Correct.
But if you're plugged into your energy source, i.e. recycling energy, I'm on a call with you. If you notice, in every single one of my trainings, or I'll be doing meetings or a podcast or whatever the hell I'm doing, as I'm communicating with someone, if I watch and I see the impact that I'm having with you and it's positive, and I know that you're resonating, you're really grasping the information and it's serving you, I'm now seeing that as effect. From that, just recycling back into me, and I'm transferable and I'm able to do more. And it's so that's why it's important at that time at night for you to be alone. Right when you very first wake up in the morning, that's where you'll gain all the information you need to, and it tells you exactly what you need to do. But this is what people do.
I remember in the morning being like, well, I remember there's times like recently, like 2 days ago, when I get like terrified of being alone with my own thoughts. I'm like, oh man, I don't want to deal with this. Like, I don't want to, whatever. And it's so like, I mean, I think that's one of those things where you're always like, it's never done. You know, you're never like, oh, I've achieved it. I can like,
I can
click into it in my thoughts, but it's always this thing where you're like, I love what you said there around, hey, why am I feeling this way? Break it down, and just being like kind of taking this approach of like, oh, interesting. Oh, cool.
Just be curious. Don't be judgmental. Just be curious. Just be curious. Start questioning your own thought. Like, why does this keep coming? Why am I feeling this? Like, why do I feel like shit? Why do I not want? Where does my lack of motivation come from? Where's it coming from? That usually it's stemming from fear or something. And it might be subconsciously. It might not happen in your dream. Where people say that, but like, well, damn, that was a coincidence. There's no coincidence in life. And they'll say, oh, like, damn, I feel like it's deja vu. It happened. That's just the universe telling you you're right where you need to at that moment, at that time.
And to be like really, because I feel like a lot of the struggles aren't really talked about in entrepreneurship. It's really glamorized. So to be like super transparent, like if for anybody listening who might be going through a hard time right now, or is trying to get their business off the ground or their podcast, whatever it could be, like I have a really successful business, and I talked to somebody on the phone yesterday where I just like broke down and just started.
That's real though. That's real.
Like legit started breaking down because he had like tapped into something around worthiness, and it clicked for me that there was like this issue happening for me around worthiness, and I just like lost it. Like, I haven't, like, I was like, I'm sorry. I like turned off my video. I'm like, okay, I'm crying, blah, blah. And he was like, it's cool. Like, don't worry.
Because what you did was you soaked it in, you compartmentalized at some point, in certain areas, and you were ignoring the inevitable because you didn't want to lean into that because it scared you a little bit. And when it scares you, you just get away from it. And then next thing you know, you might hear something. It's just like stress. You can't add like, where's this stress coming from? You know, you ever heard someone say, I'm really stressed? You can feel that you're stressed, but you can't add up. This is why I'm stressed. This is why I'm stressed. This is why I'm stressed. And you hit a certain level, then you have a freaking breakdown, and boop, And it happens to the best of us. I don't give a shit. I'm 8-figure earners getting to 9. And there's days I'll be like, what the I'm losing my mind. I'm like, okay, but I'm open with that because that's part of my superpower, that I'm able to get it out there, and I don't really give a shit what someone's going to think about me.
And I think that man, I love this conversation because I think it's one that really, really needs to be had more, especially for around entrepreneurship dude, what that made me realize, because I think where a part of the reason where it came from is I've been looking, and like I'm scaling my business at the moment. We're growing pretty fast.
Right.
And I'm looking at all these ways I can scale and getting things implemented and different people to hire and work with and you name it. And what that clicked for me is I was like, hey, Ella, it doesn't matter what systems, what ad you run. If you don't deal with this worthiness issue, it's
there we go. It's never
right? Sometimes it's this underlying where like if it's a bit of a scarcity mindset, right? Like that's where I got caught in it of like, oh man, is it like, am I good enough? Am I like, but what if I let people down and it gets big and holy shit, what if it all falls to shit? And I feel, you name it, right? So it's
a
like
muscle. Entrepreneurship's a muscle.
Man.
It's a muscle.
Yeah.
The more you strengthen that muscle, the better that you will be, right? But you got to feed it the right things. Okay. So like, think about this overall. So if I use this example a lot just because it makes it easier for people. If I brush my teeth today and I don't brush them tomorrow, I'm not going to see a huge change. But if I brush my teeth today and I don't brush them again for 3 months, I'm going to have some fucking problems. Okay. That's what success, that's mindset. Be like, oh my God, I built this, I built that, I've done this, I've been great. I'm like, you've ever met someone that you met maybe years ago and you haven't seen again for the next 3 years, and you're like, what the fuck happened to you, bro? Do you know what I mean?
Why do people do meth? God.
Like, no, I'm not saying drugs, but you know what I mean? Like mindset, like, man, like 3 years ago, you were the shit. Like, what happened? And they might have had a traumatic experience, didn't lean into the adversity. Maybe it started that one day where they compromised their quality of life and working on what they really wanted to do, and they don't strengthen that muscle for a while. But that's what I'm saying. It's the minimum gains that are important. You and catching,
vice versa, right? You
100%.
Like, what happened to you? Like, you're a powerhouse. Like, holy shit. Yeah, totally. You see it. Right.
And that's the beautiful part. Because you'll catch someone that maybe they don't have all the talent in the world, but they're consistent and they're persistent towards their growth and gaining more knowledge. Like I mentioned it earlier just now about the human brain, the computing and the librarian part of your brain, to putting and filing all that information. That's why it's essential to gain more knowledge, but not all the knowledge. You gain explicit knowledge of what you need to get yourself to the next day.
An open mind is what will allow you to grow. A wide open mind will get you killed.
Yes, 100%. It's too much information.
Like a parachute, right? An open parachute saves your life. A wide open parachute flips upside down and you die. So like,
by the way, I'm never jumping out of a fucking plane. I'm talking, it's not going to happen. I'm not saying I'm not scared of that. I'm just saying that they're whoever put together that, I don't trust people, so I'll put together the parachute myself.
And there's a really good book out there called Barking Up the Wrong Tree. It's by Barker. And basically, I think the subtitle is like, why everything you know about success is wrong. And one of the things he talks about and everything he gets is all, data and everything. One of the things he talks about in there is, I believe he said it's above a 115 IQ. Any more points really don't have any determination of how well that person will do. It's 100% like work ethic, grit, all, quality of relationships is huge. All of it. So it's true. Like it's, I know there's people out there smarter than me. I know there's it doesn't mean that they're inevitably going to be more successful than me.
No.
So it's
about how you make people feel in the community, and it's a compound effect on that, Ella. Do you know what I mean? So think about this overall. Like I've met some crazy people, but the ones that actually make the other parties and they polarize their energy through other people, or selling to other people and understanding the impact that they can have on others, and not looking for a minimum gain from that encounter. Those are the ones that are really going to do well, because they're only focusing on how they're transferring that energy and they're conscious of that. So it's not the system. Like as we're on this meeting right now, and Are we still on Clubhouse thing? We have this is my
We're
first time.
I have it open on my phone. I'm listening on Clubhouse right now. I promise I'm not ignoring you. I have it open on my phone, but I turned the screen off because I don't want to be distracted.
Right, 100%. No, I said
listening. I don't know if anybody is
it's like, who knows?
I don't know.
But it might be just us talking to each other. Who gives a shit anyway? But the whole thing is, I'm just enjoying the conversation. As we're having a conversation, the world's evolving.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's changing.
Yeah.
That's an opportunity. So the systems, and I hate when I get it pitched all the time for people doing startup, looking for investments. And that's great. I love it. Mm-hmm. But don't come to me with this big master plan when you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah, I was watching an interview a little while ago with one of the top, one of the biggest angel investors, and they were asking him, hey, what do you look for? Mm-hmm. And he's like, honestly, like there's a lot of ideas out there that, could work, that people
bring me a no-brainer. Well,
he's like, I'm looking in the person. Are they self-aware enough to know that and humble enough to hire for their weaknesses? How did they deal? And like one thing he said that totally resonated with me, and it actually made me like uncover something to me, is he was like, I want to see that before I am jumping in with that person. Because if I jump in on the startup and it works, we're looking at a 10-year relationship.
Yep,
he's like,
you get married.
I want to see them under extreme stress. Because that's what I see.
That's probably the best advice you can ever get. And I hope the listeners really paid attention to that. So you learn so much from an individual watching them go through hell.
Yeah.
Do they give up or do they win?
Yeah, like I want to see them under extreme stress. And he gave some examples. He's like, that's when I see, do they lose it? And do they yell at everybody? Do they shut down? And in like that moment for me, I realized like, holy shit, when I'm under extreme stress, I shut down. Like I want to cave up in my little hole and just be like, it'll go away. So it's No, it doesn't, right? But it's like we all have a nervous system reaction to extreme stress. It'd be weird if you were fine. Like that's not normal. So like what made me realize that it's like this cool growth evolution is when I'm starting to feel that like I just want to retreat. I don't want to work. I want to shut down. I don't want to have that conversation. I'm like, okay, Ella, you're scared. It's cool.
I love that you have enough self-awareness that you're able to identify that before you go into your shell, because some people, that's why the military trains until their eyes bleed. Mm-hmm. They're training for you not to freeze in certain situations, and you're tapping that deep in your subconscious. For you being self-aware enough of understanding that, and that's why, and I don't know what I'll call this and title it. Just be alone in your own fucking thoughts. Like, who knows? But just be alone in your own thoughts, and you'll be able to catch that before it's going to have a negative impact on you in a longer time frame. Mm-hmm. Because if you're able to sense it and know the symptoms behind them, the Greek has a saying like know thyself, but the whole thing in life is, and the whole illusion, no one really knows themselves because you only know yourself for that day, because the next day it's going to change.
Yeah.
Because if you're never a healed person or a successful person, it's just a process.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to watch your language. Like as high performers, we're never scared. We're stressed. Like we're never, and it's one of those things where a lot of, I meet a lot of entrepreneurs that are really smart and they can outfox some people. But when you do it too often, you'll outfox yourself.
Yeah.
And saying, oh no, it's not that I have a confidence issue. I just don't want to show off. It's like, no, you have a confidence issue and that's okay.
That's a limiting belief right there. Like, I don't give a shit. I'm plugged in. When I'm on, I'm on. There's no like, oh, Chris, you need to dial it back a little bit. And I know I've watched a lot of your stuff too. And I know that you're the same way. And that's why we're even here. Right.
Yeah.
There's stop, go. And I'm going, and it's 100 miles an hour. And I'm not going to dial myself back just because someone else's insecurities on how they feel or whatever that might be. If you don't like me, you'll tune off my station. Do you know what I mean? Like
you're at a different, like, and it's why you're at the level you're at. Right. And so I think it's one of those things that like you just demonstrated so beautifully, like you build up to that.
Yes.
And B, it's like, also just, I think this kind of ties back to in the very beginning where we were talking about a lot of women coming into entrepreneurship is, I think one advantage and one disadvantage that women have is advantage is we're a little bit more tuned into our emotions. Like we're just taught that's more okay growing up society. Yeah. Right. So we're a little bit more tapped in. One disadvantage is I see a lot of women trying to like kind of rise up and have the masculine standpoint of business and like,
you gotta know yourself. Yeah.
And
I love it.
Cool. That's cool. But like, it's sort of ignoring a huge superpower that but men have, but more women have, which is the adaptability to really understand, to really kind of tap into these emotions. And that's something very recent for me in the past 6 months that I've been able to be like, Ella, you're scared. It's cool. You're scared. It's cool.
Okay, I'll give you one, and I know, and I've met some really, really good entrepreneurs, especially younger entrepreneurs, in probably in the last like say 3 years. Okay,
yeah,
the ones that I see doing exceptionally well and adapting to the marketplace is they know how to control their feminine energy and when to turn it up and turn it off. But they're really good at gauging a room, engaging the situation and knowing the situation and the dynamics of the situation before they speak. If it just goes out to the listeners, and if you're a man and you're an entrepreneur, don't you think it's kind of like ironic that the women usually speak last? They're the smartest ones in a room. They're going to speak last, for one reason, to give everybody a sense of, you know what I mean? Like they've been heard and their voice is being, you know what I mean? And they're understanding the information. But then also on top of that, now they just heard everyone else speak and everyone's point of view. Now they know how to take that shit to the next level. Right? So be conscious of that. Yeah. It's
probably one of the most, the skill set of really tuning into how, like, reading people. It's probably one of the biggest skill sets you can have. Like I was adopted, and I went to 5 different high schools in 4 years, and I was always searching for that sense of belonging, right? Because I my adopted family is incredible, but it's not, you're always it's not quite the same. So when I went into schools, I wanted to like survive socially and have a sense of belonging there. So and I don't even think I did this consciously, but what I would do is I would find the most popular girl in school. We all know the most popular girl in school runs the school. Most popular guy is a placeholder. There has to be someone, so someone is elected. The girl runs the school. She's there for a reason.
True.
I find the most popular girl in school. I would kind of just we'd always have classes together or something. So I would just kind of like be around for 3 days. And within about a week and a half, I would become her best friend.
Oh my God.
And it's how I survived socially, was I would just kind of like and I think it gave me this ability to like tune into and read people and just like have good timing and whatever it could be. And it's one of the things that is one of the things that's it's like, I've had people say this to me. They're like, Ella, the most charming thing about you is your honesty. And I'm like, I don't know why people don't do this more. Like, it's so disarming. Like I was on the phone with somebody yesterday. It was an incredible woman. She's a 3-time Emmy Award winner, and she's an incredible speaking coach. And she's somebody I'm considering working with. And her name's Dominique. And I got on the phone with her and I was like, hi, Dominic. And I know her name, and she's like, it's Dominique. And I'm like, oh man, listen.
Own it. Just own it. Lean into that. Yeah. Embrace it.
I am so nervous to be talking to you. Like, I don't even really know why I'm on this call right now. So I totally apologize. I might bumble a bit, but I'm so happy to be on the phone with you. And she just was like, oh my God, you're so
so humbling. Yeah.
Disarmed it. So it's one of the easiest things you can do, where you can just say, hey, look, I know I might be coming off, a bit jittery or whatever. I'm really nervous right now. I really look up to you, and I really want to make the most out of this interaction. And oh my God, like you'll melt anybody's heart. So I think it's
well, you know yourself enough, but that perhaps might not work for someone else. Is just like maybe they're not leaning into it and they kind of shy away from it. Like, oh, I knew your name. I'm sorry. And they make it an excuse on and. People pick up on everything.
Oh, they know. They're like,
if people are aligned, they're going to pick up on that shit. I don't need to really ask. I have to ask a lot of questions, or I'll ask a lot of what, when, why, how questions, like the diagnostic questions, and then talk too much. And then now I know, I'm like, man, they got a lot of work to do. But I've never successful people. I don't meet really successful people that like to pick on others and they don't talk them down. They'll provide them a resource and point them in the right direction. Right. So it's all about, paying it forward. You have to do the small things right. You'll get to the big results, but you have to put in that work on understanding that part. You just touched on something I want you to expand on if you can.
Yeah.
And just for the listeners to understand more about how that is probably one of the most important skills you have to develop.
Yeah.
Is being present in the conversation and you just owning the fact that you screwed up or whatever. And you're like, listen, you took that opportunity to reframe it for her to give her more information, for her to make her own decision? Or are you even conscious of the fact that you did it that way?
I mean, it's something it's something that I remember when I think it comes, I think again, like just from my upbringing and having, I didn't have that baseline belonging in my family, like a lot of people do. And so I knew, we're human beings. We need that. So I had to find it in other places. So I think it was an evolved skill set. But truthfully, when I'm, I've worked with some bigger clients lately and been in some big rooms, and when I've been around people that, I'm like, holy crap, what am I doing here? Like,
that's the best.
I'm just like, whoa, like this is really crazy. Like, it's just like this whole, it's people I'm nervous around. It's people I look up to that I've learned from afar. And, I think, honestly, I think there was like a day where I was trying to like really hold it all together, and and we were all having a conversation. It shifted to me. And I remember just being like, and I was like, hey, look, you guys, like, I feel like I don't even belong here. Like, I am like, I've been full-time in my business 2 years. Things have been going well, but I'm listening to you right now. And I am just like, what the fuck am I doing here? Right. And I think that's what I said. And they were just like, oh my God, I feel the same. Like, somebody who I looked at it was like, dude, I feel the same way right now. I can't believe you just.
But that's the whole point. That's the double. There's two sides of that. At some point, you got to understand this. At some point, you're going to be sitting in a boardroom one day, and there's somebody going to be sitting there next to you, and they're going to feel the way that you felt that day. You need to understand and be comfortable with both sides of it. Yeah. And you will experience it at some point. I've had, I wouldn't say mentors, but I've had people that I've been around that I've learned from indirectly, and they know that. But then I'll go on my own path, and I'll go do some things, and I'll come back, and we'll meet again. They'll be like, Chris, I just want to be involved in your journey. I just want to be like, hey, what can I do? Okay, I'll do this. And then that's like passing a torch type of thing with someone. That's your job, is that you need to outgrow them at some point, but not outgrow them to leave them. You outgrow them to work with them, right? Now consider you as a peer.
And I think there's a time and a place too. Like that was a very 100%. Kind of open forum conversation. It was it was socially appropriate to like just kind of call it there. If I, for example, like I've had lots of times where I've been talking to clients and something clicks for me for what we need to do, but I don't know how to execute on it yet.
Love it.
That's probably not the time. Like, hey, I haven't, I had this idea, but I haven't you don't need, I wouldn't break down that whole thought process. I'd be like, listen, okay, I have an idea. I haven't done it before, but I have a feeling it could work. Can you give me a day for me to put this together? And let me get back to you with something fleshed out. Cause I like what you're saying. I think we could do it, but I just want to get this organized so that it doesn't take up any unnecessary time. And they're like, cool. So I think there's a time and a place, right? And it's not like spill everything, but it's use the fact that like, we're all human. We're all human. We all have, like, I don't care if you're Oprah, like we all have insecurities. We all have, we've all been in these beginning places. And like you said before, with people who have been there, they will never, ever look at somebody like who's starting and be like, what a wuss, what a rookie. Like
they're not going to say that. Oh my God, they're going to look at you. They're going to look at you and they're like, wow, the courage it took for them to be 100%. Exactly. And that speaks volumes of character.
Yeah. Like they're going to be like, oh my God, I've been there and I get it. And like, and it's really cool to realize. And it also it's kind of one of those weird things where for me anyways, when I kind of come to that acceptance point, I'm like, oh, and it's cool. And it's relieving for like 5 minutes. Then I'm like, fuck this. Then it's on to the next thing. Right. And it's like, all right, I'm here. This is fine, but this, no way. So then it's like, okay, it's like this propel energy forward where I'm like, all right, okay, you're scared, what the fuck ever. You're gonna make this work. And then I'll just kind of, but it really needs that baseline point of being like cool with it. And then it's like a huge energy comes forward and it's like, let's go. What are you doing?
I got one other thing I want to talk about, something a little bit off topic and not too far off, but you were very similar to this. My mom was adopted twice. My older sister was so I get the whole thing and never feeling like nothing was ever good enough and always trying to show out and just feeling like you, I guess, accepted and, like a feeling needed or wanted. And I get the dynamic. So I think there's a lot of similarities where I learned it from I learned from myself, but from because you get it from your parents, no matter what. You always get it from your parents at some point. So maybe that's why I picked up on that. When you touched on this, and now we're going to go into energy real quick. You have a high energy level, which is great. For most people, they might be a little bit more sheltered, a little like, wow, this is too much energy. And I suffered from this for a little while and figuring out my way and figuring out my voice, I guess you would say. When you're transferring energy all day and you're plugged into your energy source and you're recycling that energy and being conscious of it, do you struggle with sometimes taking that energy and putting into other things for it to recycle back and knowing how to shut it, turn it off, and turn it back on? Because I used to suffer from, and I'm just going to be 100% vulnerable, I used to suffer from really like doing some massive shit and fun shit all day. And then I didn't know what to do with myself afterwards. I was like, what do I do with all this energy now? Like I was addicted to growth and addicted to, success, right? I was addicted to the feeling of I'm serving and I'm making an impact. What the fuck do I do with my life after this? Like, I don't know what to do. Okay. And I know what I've done. I know what I did to be able to obviously put myself back into one. Have you suffered from something like that before? Because you have that type of level of energy that's very similar to mine.
Yeah. I mean, I think honestly, exercise has probably saved my life on more occasions than one. In the sense of like, cause like when I'm stuck and frustrated, I'm stuck and frustrated. Right. Yep. Okay. And I still have that ability within me, but it's stuck and it's uncomfortable. And I've just found, like, when you're in your head, you're dead. You've got to get into your body.
I love it. When you're in your head, you're dead.
When you're in your head, you're dead. Like, you got to get into your body. And so, I run 5 miles every morning. I'll do different weight workouts. I'll do whatever, but I can tell you like 90% of my biggest business breakthroughs didn't happen at my computer. They happened when I was listening to an audiobook in the gym.
Oh, I love that.
Or I went to my brother's housewarming party and I got this cool idea from somebody I hadn't seen in 10 years or whatever it could be. And another thing as well, and this is a huge thing for me, it's drastically improved the quality of my life, is I don't drink. I haven't drank. Yeah. And it's not like I had a big problem with it before. I think it was 1.5 years ago. I would, just have a glass of wine with dinner. And I was like, you know what? I'm curious to see what would happen if I cut this out. So I stopped drinking for a month and I was like, wow, I feel fine.
Made it 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, 6 months. Like, wow. Then you look at your growth and go, okay, all right.
And then it's been 1.5 years and I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever drink again, and it's because there's been a few times where I'm like, I could use a drink. But then I think I'm like, what's that really going to help? Like, how is that actually going to improve any situation here besides the fact that it's like maybe a temporary dopamine release?
Yeah. If you look at where else can I get that will actually serve me?
Yeah. So I think that's a huge aspect because I would get almost a little bit manic sometimes. Like when I would be hungover before, when I would drink and, go with my friends and stuff, when I would get hungover, I would get almost a little bit manic. Like I would just have this weird sort of jittery energy. And I think it's probably due to the fact you don't sleep great after drinking and whatever. Yeah. But it was very off-putting. And even like, as I was speaking, I'd be like, this is coming out weird. Like I could, in my head, I knew that this wasn't how I wanted to express myself. So I think that's done wonders for leveling that out.
Right. That's a good point. I was just morally curious, and then we're 100% aligned to that because I just didn't know what to do with it. I mean, obviously working out definitely does help. I actually have a bike in my place. So what I do is I get off, maybe I'll have a call a little bit later because I'm in the UK, so I'm working still U.S. hours because I have U.S. businesses. So, and especially sometimes, there's a lot of other people that come onto the show might be in California, they might be in Australia, but other parts. And I mean, I don't give a shit. Any day that ends in Y, anytime, I'll do what I need to do, but I'll structure my day to make sure that I'm not over compromising another aspect of my life to get a minimum return or do something. Right. So anyways, make a long story short, I'll be at 10 o'clock at night. I'll get off whatever I'm doing. And then I'll go ride that thing for about 20 minutes. And then I'm releasing that energy back into something else that's serving me, not hurting me.
Exactly.
Right. And I used to do is I'm a social guy. So I would go out. And what do you do when you go out? You have a cocktail. Right? So you have a cocktail. Then what next thing turns into 2 or 5 or whatever you want to do. Then it might not stay long, but it's enough to get me a little groggy, a little tired. the next day. Didn't get enough sleep, didn't enough time for the librarian part of my brain to process information. I'm not taking in the right information. I'm not around high achievers. I'm around people that are bottom feeders. That way of thinking, maybe it's enough time. You got to really make sure that you're spending enough time, quality time by yourself, and enough quality time at the higher levels, and just being in the conversation. You'll learn so much indirectly that I just want to be a fly on the wall. Just give me a fly on the wall to the next levels. Fly on the wall. I'll get you coffee. I'll get you this. I'll get you that. I'll earn myself up there.
Yeah.
That's any advice to anybody like growing up and new. That's what I would do if I was them.
Yeah, I was the executive assistant for a very, very successful entrepreneur for 2 years before I started my own business. And I mean, he taught me copy. It's one of the best. He's still kind of a mentor to me to this day. It's one of the best professional relationships I've ever had. And I didn't know what Zoom was when I started working. I didn't know anything about the online world. I really was immersed in it and had to learn it through working for him. And so I think it's key. And I think there's this whole thing around, like, we've all heard a million, like, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And for sure, that might be true. Okay. But I think there's this whole thing around, like, burn your bridges and cut ties. And I don't really think it's that necessary to like have full on conversations with people and be like, hey, you're not going to be in my life anymore because your relationship seems toxic.
Why have that conversation? That's not going to serve you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's just really smart to just start like gravitating towards the people that you want to be friends with, like on Instagram, right? Like start looking at people you would want to be friends with and what they're doing and these high achievers, and just start like, laying the foundations and spending your time laying the foundations for those relationships. And before you know it, it's like that negative friend doesn't like hate you, but you haven't talked to them in 2 months, and because you didn't have to like have a huge a huge blow up with them or whatever. But I mean, honestly, like I had to really, I wouldn't say distance, but really tune out even a lot of my family when I was building a business.
I did too.
Yeah. Like my family is super academic, and they that's kind of the world they relate to. And it's not the world I relate to. And so it's not like I had to like cut anybody off, but I really had to just sort of tune it out.
You can still love people from a distance. You know what I mean? Like love them from a distance, and still, if they feel that you're a valuable resource to them or a valuable family member and they love you unconditionally, allow them enough space to prove it. I'm not trying to be like a dick here and saying that. I know what I really want in my life. And if they want the best for me, then they know that I need to do this my way. And they're going to respect that. Like, I love what you said there. People say, oh, you need to burn your boats. Yeah, that's fine for you. I can't do that because I don't want to hurt relationships that I've worked so hard to get and have.
I don't know if it's necessary. It's a lot of
It's not necessary, man. Yeah. So what I do is I start, just like you mentioned, gravitating.
Yeah.
If you really want to level up and you want to see if they'll level up with you, go one little notch one day and then another notch the next day and see if they go with you.
And I think one thing to be prepared for too is like when you start doing even the fact that even in the beginning when you're doing your own thing and you're terrified and people looking at you are saying this is so cool and you're like, I don't know what you're talking about. Whenever you start doing something unique, something big, you're gonna automatically activate people's not enoughness for the ones that have it, because it's gonna be this projection of like, oh well, like she got lucky or he had this advantage or what, and it's like, I don't know, I feel like you just kind of gotta like let people be who they are, let them live their lives. It's never we're so inherently narcissistic. Like it's never about you. We think it's about us. It's not about us. And you really can't, like, I just had kind of really cool conversation last night with a friend where he was like, look, you've got to stop taking responsibility for shit that's not your fault.
Yeah. Wow. That's good advice.
Your responsibility if something went wrong, but this wasn't your fault. And you fell on your sword, but it sniped at your confidence, and I can hear it. And I'm like, holy fuck, you're totally right. Like, so it's like, people have their own shit. Let them decide whether or not they're going to own it or own the fact that they're triggered by you. And so they're acting shitty and jealous or like whatever. Right.
I love what you said. And on top of that, and I'm sure you feel the same way of learning indirectly from people that you've been around and been exposed to in your career. Be conscious of where you're getting your advice.
Oh God, yes.
Don't go to your friend that works at fucking Taco Bell and ask them about a startup. Okay. Or ask them, and I'm not trying to knock anyone here. Just be very conscious of where you're getting your advice and where's it coming from and where's the intention behind what they're saying. And if it's pure, like I'm not going to go to, Phil Collins and ask him about basketball. Okay. But I will go to LeBron James and ask him, okay, what's the ROI of a piano for Phil Collins? I don't know, whatever his net worth is. It's got to be over 100 million. So it's fucking rich, right? It's okay. Yeah, a lot. Okay. So whatever. But what is the ROI of a piano for LeBron James?
0. Okay.
Then you got to know what they're capable of.
Yeah.
Know what are their tools. And who's one of the best at utilizing that tool? And you're one of the best of utilizing Instagram as a tool, not a hobby. There's a difference between having a LLC entity. People go, I have a business. No, you have an entity. That's a hobby, just glorified, right? Business, protocol, systems, CPAs, you know what I mean? Like you have compliance teams, that's business. But if it's not producing revenue, it's not serving, it's not going to help you. But it's okay if you're just there now. But call it what it is. Call it what it is. You have a growing and is scaling. It's okay. So that's why I want to touch on this. You need to go after the ones that are actually doing really well and utilizing what they do for a living, the purpose behind it, where that their inspiration feels like it's pulling them. And that comes from you being aligned with your purpose and you knowing exactly what you need to do with your mission, okay? And I'm saying that you are. I'm trying to give you a compliment here. So when you're pushing it and you're polarizing that out, you know who your client is, okay? And that was the first conversation we've had weeks ago. It feels like a month ago. But when we had our first conversation, you knew exactly who your clientele was and who you were trying to get to. Everyone's trying to sell to the masses. You need to get to the ones that need to hear you and see you and the ones that are going to buy from you and are going to do it with no resistance. And it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Do you try to communicate that to your many clients that you have, some really good clients you have? Do you try to communicate that to them or is it their team that is going through your system in your course? I think it's an 8-week course. Is it 8 weeks?
It's actually, we just changed it to a 12-week.
12 weeks. Okay.
Yeah. So with the group program, a lot of the time we'll get a lot of, EAs or, marketing teams that come into it because we teach them, the wash, rinse and repeat system of how to grow and monetize the social presence. So that way they have a system. What I found that was hard at first, it's not so much anymore, but for me to stay in integrity, even if I'm working with a big client who maybe has 10 minutes a day that's not booked solid in their calendar, if I'm not communicating to them, hey, we could do all the magic in the world behind the scenes, but the messaging's off, I'm not doing my job.
There it is.
So for me to stay in integrity, as much as I might not want to, you don't want to bug this person and you want to keep them as blah, blah, blah. It's like, my job is to say, hey, here's what's off, and we can do all the magic we can in the background. It's not going to work until this gets fixed. And this is the front facing job. This is the one thing I need you to do. So
that's your moral obligation. That's your moral obligation on what you do for a living. And a lot of people don't have that.
Yeah. I think it was J. that said, you never sell less than the person needs, but you don't sell more either.
Right. And try to overfulfill.
Right.
And that's where a lot of people get in trouble. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's, there is with the systems that I create, I'm very, very clear with the owner of the business or the front facing social.
Up front.
These are the things that you're going to have to do. We'll touch base on that once per month because we're in the back end. I'm working with the team, training them, showing them how to do everything. So I'm in the back end watching everything behind the scenes. But I know that if that's not optimizing, there could be a front facing problem. And there's always there's always the one category of unknowns, algorithm changes, etc. But that's, I think it's just part of doing my job.
Do a lot of your clients, when they on maybe an executive level, the ones and they put an EA there, put their teams underneath them, how many of them maybe have issues with some of the requirements that you have as in standards?
I find the deeper, like again, I'm going to work to make it as incorporate it as much into something they're already doing as I can. As these guys are busy, right. But I find really the level of my relationship with them really matters. A lot of the time I'll spend a month
that makes sense
to somebody before I bring them on as a client, because I want to see, okay, like, well, hey, can you bring me in on a team meeting? Can I just be a fly on the wall and see how you operate? Can you whatever? And I will, as long as possible, well, not as long as possible, but as long as necessary, I'm going to observe the environment.
Oh, you're so smart.
Okay.
This girl right here is so smart. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not writing notes, this is shit they do not teach. Okay.
I don't know why.
And this is they should. What she's doing is she's a fly in the world observing, and she's learning what's the environment, what's the things they like to talk about, knowing how they go about making decisions. Once she figures that out, she's got them. And it's not got them in a bad way. Now she knows how to serve them at a high level where they don't need to tell her what they need to do. Like, Ella, I need this. I know what you need. Don't worry. Because the point I'm making is this. I make it my business to know what you are desperately looking for without you telling me.
And a big thing as well is I need to know the pace that this person moves.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, I work with high-level entrepreneurs where, like, I can tell they like to sleep in. They like their space.
Nothing wrong with that.
When they put their head down, they go, right? And they just, I've worked with ones that are a force of nature. And from minute one, they are on it. There's a new idea. Like, well, I need to know the pace this person moves at, because that will help me be like, hey, what I need this, like, here's exactly when I need you to do this is first thing in the morning, bubble, because otherwise I'll forget about it. And I'll, like, I've had clients where I call them and it's 7 a.m. and I'm like, hey, can you send me that video? Oh yeah, I'll do it right now. Perfect. They do it. It's done in 5 minutes. Because they move at the speed of light. But that wouldn't work for somebody else, So yeah, like, I'll spend as much time in the environment as necessary, I would say. And then there's been, and what that helps me do as well, this is one of the biggest things, especially if you're somebody where you're like me, you can be a bit more impulsive rather than, assessing the risk, is what that will allow me to do. It'll allow me to look at how they operate culturally,
that's good.
And it allows me to say, okay, I can tell that me, coming in with my original idea might not work here just with what's already going on. What if I took it down to this small deliverable that I can control completely? I don't need to work with their team on. It's still going to help them. It's still in integrity, but I know this will be a better fit based on what's happening right now or based on whatever. And, those are huge, because that's the difference between someone who will, like, someone who will refer you and someone who's like, we tried, but it flopped and I don't know what went wrong. Right. Huge. So that's something that, again, you only learn through experience. I've learned through experience.
How are you conscious of how well you frame conversations?
What do you mean?
The way that you frame things, you tell them your intention, and you're painting a picture for them to visualize before you actually tell them exactly what you're telling them. Are you conscious of that? I've worked with this he's been a coach, a mentor of mine for the past year. This guy, Joe DiMaria, who's just incredible. Yeah.
And he taught me one thing he taught me I'll never ever forget is he said, like, look, it's 2021. He said 2020 at the time. It's 2021. Facts are thrown at us every day.
Yes.
We don't believe, like, we hear stats numbers every day. He's like, if you want to really impact people, you've got to weave your facts into a story.
There it is.
Got to weave it in. And so maybe that's maybe hopefully he'll see this and be proud of me. Maybe that's actually implemented, but that's
share it with him, because if you, that's what I was writing down when you were talking. There's been 6 times that you've done this on this call.
What?
There's been 6 times when you go to say something and you're telling me you don't You're not telling me something. What you're doing is you're telling me a story about that something to paint a picture.
Yeah.
So for those who are listening to this, mark my words, go count them. There's an exercise. Go count how many times she framed it.
Oh my God. Yes. Yeah. Go for it. Do it.
Why I am conscious of this, because this is what I teach. Anchoring or framing are the two most important skills that people need to develop in today's marketplace. And I don't give a shit if you're an entrepreneur or if you're selling fucking toilets. I don't give a shit. The way that you anchor and frame it and understand and identifying patterns of behavior. So say I'll drop, like, you get excited about something, right? Or like I know you love horses.
Mm-hmm.
If I said the word horse and horses, or paint that type of whatever and drop that in a conversation, that's going to spark an emotion from you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then anchoring, reframing and framing something, I'm painting a picture. And then at some point in that conversation, for me to get the emotion that I'm looking for, I'm going to subtly drop that in there to see what reaction you would have and seeing if it has the same. So I can do this in a negative side, pain, pleasure. Okay. Me being conscious of this, and I'm just painting a picture for the listeners to understand this, and hopefully it helps them. When people tell me, okay, salespeople, I hear this a lot. They say, I'm looking for the yeses. Okay. And so they say, I need to get these yes and jam this product, service shit down someone's throat. I'll pay attention to what you said to me and what you're not saying to me. I'm going to paraphrase, and I'm going to leave out some valuable information to make sure you try to correct me, because people love to correct other people. And now you just told me exactly what you're looking for.
Can I like double click on something you said there?
Please.
Okay. So this is so fascinating. This is something I've learned about human behavior. Okay. Is we will reveal so much more in our desire to correct people than we will from the most eloquently worded question. So for example, somebody I learned a lot about human behavior from was Chris Voss. And if you haven't heard of him, he's a 21-year FBI kidnapping and hostage negotiator, top of his game. And he tells this story. His book is called Never Split the Difference. I'm not associated with it in any way. Get it? It'll change your life. And he tells this story about how there was, he had this client who was in real estate acquisitions. They acquired commercial real estate property, and they had found this. It was kind of an apartment retail building. It was completely leased out for the next 10 years. It was on historic ground. They literally could not tear it down, and it was in great shape, and it was for sale. And his client was like, "I don't get it. Like, why is this?
Where's this disconnect at?
Why would this be put up for sale?" Right. So they're in negotiations with the lawyer, and because this was, the client of this guy, Chris Voss, who's really smart. As they're in negotiations with the lawyer, he said to the lawyer that was handling the sale, he said, "Hey, I understand that your client doesn't see the long-term value in this property. We just need a little bit more time to go over this contract." And the lawyer said, "Oh, no.
Of course.
It's not that my client doesn't see the long-term value. Let me correct you." He said, "Oh, no. What's happening?"
Baited him. All you do is bait him.
What's happening is we need to liquefy some money right now. There's been issues with
I understand. Now I understand the situation for me to figure out how I can serve you and how we can meet in the middle. Like a lot of the time, if you're, there's always unknowns in any negotiation and any conversation. Yes.
And there's two aspects I find where I'll be like, "Hey, from my understanding, it looks like this. Is that right?" And I'll let them, if that's right, bonus. If it's, well, actually, here's the real thing, and I'll get the real thing. Another one as well with human behavior. Hold on, it was on like the tip of my tongue. Correction is huge. You'll get way more information. There was one other on the tip of my tongue, but it totally fell out. I'll think of it. But it's so interesting how our brains, like we want to be correct. We want to be correct, and we don't like to be one up. So I do pay attention to the ones that impasse and different types of communicating and understanding cadence and the tonality behind that. I believe his group, we got connected, and he's had some event stuff that he moved around. So be coming on the show. I love his back. Because it's funny, we got connected through, because people say, "Oh,
Chris Ross, and then Chris Ross was like, we're only one letter off. It just makes more sense.
Oh, you're having Chris Voss on the show?
Yeah, you're becoming. We haven't set the time. Yeah, it's going to be crazy. I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun because I have a different. He comes from that world. I come from the education. This is why we got connected. The education, studying more about the emotional intelligence. I learned intuitively through communicating non-verbally. Yeah. So we have totally different paths and journeys, but same message and same understanding when it comes to how to get the most from a conversation. And he talks about never splitting a difference, but people don't know where I'm shooting for. People think, that's what the whole thing is, the win-win effect. It's not everyone's, we're both going to win, but I'm shooting for this. And just because you think we're hitting here, I've already won the negotiation. That guy's so legit. Like I love his message. He's a genuine person too. Yeah, I haven't met him personally, but he seems like such a good guy. I just moved to Phoenix, and I moved into like this place like almost 3 months ago. And I used the stuff from his book, and I negotiated my rent from I love it.
100 with nothing included to 1,800, including water, electricity, internet, cable, all of it. Like his stuff's legit. What was the deciding factor, you think? Or was it how many? And that's actually a trick question. I probably shouldn't ask you that way. How many anchors did you drop, do you think? Like set points and touch points of the conversation. And what I'm talking about, the focal points and the pivot points from the getting to go, okay, yeah, I'm up to that. I can do that. Or I won't do this. Was it easy, or was it a lot of pushback? It was quite I mean, there was times when I was like, I felt nervous asking the question, but it was quite conversational. Like essentially, I didn't know I wanted to move into the place till I saw it. So I see it and I really like it. And so I just started talking to the owner, and so we just, chit chatted and got along for 10 minutes. And I said, hey, let me ask you something. What would be, I think I asked her, I'm not laughing at you. I'm just laughing at you do this. I don't think you know how you do it so effortlessly, but anyways, go ahead. Okay.
That's good.
I was like, hey, let me ask you something. What would be an incredible tenant? What does an incredible tenant look like to you? And she was like, well, like because there's I have a whole kind of deck courtyard area, and there's quite a bit of shrubbery. And she's like, well, one thing people don't think about is when the leaves fall, if you don't just sweep them up once a month, they can actually mold, and it gets, because it rains and it gets
turns into mulch and it's hard to pick up. Yada, yada, yeah.
And I'm like, oh no, wait, could you show me? Like, because it's like, hey, look, I'm new to Arizona. Like, I don't know, I'm still learning my ways. Can you give me a look? So I just, and legit, not out of manipulation, but I was like, hey, I want to know how I would, if I lived here, how I would take good care of the place. Could you show me? And so she was like, yeah, of course. So she takes me around and shows me, and I'm like, oh, this is a really cool tree. Would you find? And like, it just turned into this whole thing. And then she, I said, by the way, I saw that, and then when it came to actual price, I was like, hey, I saw the price it was listed for, obviously. And this was, an hour and a half in. So I saw the price it listed for. I mean, I think, I would love to live here. I was really hoping to keep my living.
So good at what she does. Holy shit.
I was really hoping to keep my living expenses under $1,800 per month. Would it be crazy to have a look at like what that might be like? And she was like, and so I ask a lot of no questions. I'm looking for no's. Would it be crazy to? No, that's cool. Would it be, hey, is this, did I catch you at a bad time? No. People do not want to say yes because they don't want to be held accountable to that. Yes. Okay. Well, it's such a trap, right? Like,
yeah, it's such a trap.
Like, hi, Chris. Do you like drink clean filtered water? Like, well,
like,
yeah.
I don't know. Like, how'd you know I like to drink water?
Yeah. You're like, yeah, but what do you want? Right. Like, it was such a trap. So I have a lot of no questions. And then, so it's like, and so she's like, well, no, we can look at that. So then we looked at that. And she was like, okay, well, it'll be, it was her and her husband on the place. She's like, well, we can do 1,800, but you have to pay for internet, electricity, blah, blah. And at first I was like, okay, cool. Let me just, send over the contract. Let me look. And then I just came back to them with the same thing. I said, hey, I just was looking everything over, and I was really hoping to keep my living expenses under this number. Is there, like, I think I might have asked you this question. Like, is there, like, do you see any?
What can we do?
Any situation where we can make this work? Mm-hmm. Whatever. And she was like, you know what? It's cool. We love you. You're willing to sign a longer lease. And what I'll do a lot of the time too, like I got a good deal in this place and I really like it. What I'll do a lot of the time too is if I'm outside on like a Sunday morning reading or something, like I have a great deck area, I'll like take a picture and be like, and send it to them and be like, I just love it here. Or I just and you know, because I know
that's the fulfillment.
I know at one point I'm gonna have an ask for them. We're gonna be talking about something. And I want to have that be and they've had asks for me and that's cool, but I want to have that be as seamless as possible.
It will, and they'll end up coming to you. And if they, whatever that might be, it'll come at the right time. People don't know that people don't understand the timing of interaction. Like when the bigger play is, it's not a big play for you to win overall the conversation or relationship. That's manipulation. Yeah. But that's the whole thing about the word manipulate. Manipulate is not a bad word. It's the intention behind the word. Okay. So I manipulate my life, but I do it for the greater good of the humanity. Okay. So, and a lot of people, they have their own experience when it comes to that. So when I look at a conversation, I'm looking at a relationship. I'm looking at the long-term relationship down the road, not right now, because sometimes I might not pitch because I don't really pitch in the first place. I just present an opportunity. So they'll go, okay, yeah, great. Then I'll say they're not ready for it yet. Yet's the key word here. Then at some point after the touch points, they'll go, now I'm ready. Now they're ready. So what I try to do is I try to knock down every objection known to man around them that would prevent them to stop them from doing it. And they go, Chris, I had an idea. Oh, did you? Right? So that's how great someone can really be at influencing, but they have no idea that are actually doing it. But if they do it for the greater good, then they'll always win. If you use your powers to hurt people, then you're not going to walk yourself into those situations. If, say, for instance, I lost all the money I've ever made in my life, all my net. Okay, Ella, I'll be fine. You know what I mean? I'll be fine. I'll just give me a phone. I'll make it happen.
Yeah,
I'll make it happen. So it might not, but I guarantee you I'll probably end up getting to a higher net worth faster this time.
Yeah.
It's like you can't, there's a method behind it, right? I love that about what you do as well. I love it because we both lost our Instagram shits and both of them have grown back. I was like, man, what the hell is going on? Why'd you hack me?
Yeah, no, and true. And then that's one thing. We haven't really talked about that, but that's one thing about this group. I'm going to be with this group. It starts in like 2 weeks. I'm going to be creating a personal brand Instagram account from scratch and really having them look over my shoulder to show them absolutely everything I do.
So dope. So dope.
And yeah, it's going to be cool. But truthfully, like it's one of those things where there's been times I really wanted to bail on this. I was like, I don't want to.
Of course. I mean, because it's like I've already been here. Yeah.
But it's not even that. It's more like, I was more like, oh shit, I'm really, hey, this is like, you got to show your salt. You got to, and I know.
I got you now.
Feel like a challenge, right? And especially because I'm kind of like you, like I move fairly quickly. For me to document something I know it's going to be a challenge. I've already started doing other areas of my life to like practice, but it's a good challenge for me. And I know when it's something that I know will serve people, but I'm kind of like, I don't want to. I know it's me just like kind of being a douche and being like lazy.
Right.
So I'm just kind of like, all right, come on. Like this will be really good for you.
I think the next move, what I'm trying to, if I do get this thing back, I'm waiting to see if it's going to, I mean, we've been in communication with these guys, the PR team with IG, and they're supposed to be getting it fixed. I don't know what's going to happen or whatever, but even if it's not, I just want my handle back. Like I own that. I own my name. So it's all good. I just want my handle back, but I own my name, damn it. I own it. I paid for the rights reserved for the shit. I own it. So the whole point behind what I'm about to say is the next level and the next thing I'm going to do is, how you have content, but I'm going to show more behind the scenes content and more about, all right, I was just, and just hit record. I don't even know if it's probably going to be on me doing my thing and going into a meeting and then walk out the meeting and go, all right, this is what I'm looking for. Here's my negotiations at it. Here's what I'm going to be hitting. Here's why I'm doing this overall, long-term. And then walk in, kill it, walk out, and then debrief it. Here's what I did. Here's what I did. And wouldn't you know it? Bam, got it. And then walked out.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to be showing a lot more of, because people can say, oh, yeah, they'll listen to the show and they feel like they're getting to know me. They really don't know really what I do. Right. And that's what I love about what you just said. It's like over your shoulder type of looking.
Yeah.
Like show your freaking worth. Like show them that you're the shit. That's what that stuff goes with the whole message behind you, like and Instagram.
yeah, like shit, man. Like I'll probably create courses out of this. I'll probably like I'm never gonna. I mean, hopefully I won't have to do this again. But it's that it'll be one of those things where this could turn into some. I know this already with my Instagram being hacked and allowing it for me to rework the group program and that shift was already a big plus that happened and a big cool thing that wouldn't have happened without it. And I think this next venture with taking on the group and really documenting this whole process is going to be. There's no way good stuff can't come from it. I know it.
Case studies. Just take my advice. Case studies. Just do like record them. You're already recording anyway. Just do them anyway.
Yeah.
And just record them just in case. Like and I'm actually about to level up with the podcast. I do one interview a week and I drop. Well, I think it was his name, Entrepreneur on Fire. That's one of the top, my opinion, the top entrepreneur podcast. John Dumars. I think it's John Dumars. Anyways, forgive me, bro. I drew a blank just for a second. I think he does 7 or 5 or 7 in a week. I'm going to drop these types of conversations, like 3 a week. I'm going to start off 3 a week and it's dropping. I'm just going to overwhelm the shit out of people with like real entrepreneur, like fucking like heat. Like I'm not going to do this whole week shit. No, like fuck it. I'm just going to drop these things.
And I think
drop them
with this conversation, like don't edit it.
Like, oh no, I don't edit anything. We don't edit anything. I record the intros after, like we're having a conversation right now. Tomorrow by Monday, I have set times in a day. I'll usually do about 3 or 4 a week or so. And the next day or the next time that I'm doing I have your notes and everything that I have here. And as I'm having a conversation with you, I wrote down a bunch of stuff.
Oh, cool.
You know, this is what I do. Like when I'm having a conversation in business, I'm not writing things down for my benefit overall. I'm documenting really impactful moments for me. And then I'll remember that I'm reading that, and then I'll remember it. And now I know how to frame the intro. And that's all I edit is the intro. And that's it. And it's on. So anything that you would like to like really touch on? I know that we and I appreciate, us going as long as we wanted to go. And I've enjoyed this conversation, and I just,
it felt like 5 minutes.
I know.
We got the timer and I'm like, oh my God,
I was like, I did look up. I was like, holy shit. I was like, yeah, we've been riffing for a little while. So,
this is a really cool, just like little fun, like nerdy side note. This is a really cool testament to what you were saying earlier around having a bit more control of time. So there's a really fantastic book called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. Yep. In there, he talks about the difference between Einstein time and Newtonian time. So Newtonian time is what we're used to. We have this many hours, etc. Einstein time brings into the theory of relativity, which I think, if I'm remembering correctly, Einstein said, hey, the reason, theory of relativity basically is why when you're spending an hour with a pretty girl, it feels like a minute. And when you're touching a hot stove for a minute, it feels like an hour.
Yeah.
So it's the cool thing where, and I love that you mentioned that around time, where a lot of the time when, using Einstein time, you can really fill up that space.
Right. Slowing down. You feel like you slow down time.
Right. Exactly. You feel like you slow it down, or you're in an awesome conversation for 2 hours when normally you don't sit for that long or whatever. And it feels like 5 minutes. So just a little nerdy side.
But that's it. But no, I love I've read the book. I love that. And you dropped that for listeners, but the whole key behind that, let me ask a question for the listeners and for anybody listening to this. What do you think it would feel like to be able to maximize that amount of time, the Einstein time, as much as you can throughout your day? And how much time do you think that you do that effectively now? What if I told you that I at least do slow down time and in that Einstein time, at least 6 hours a day? That means I'm plugged into my energy source so fucking, like I'm plugged in and dialed in. I'm so in the zone. Like 6 hours ago, blast right by. I'm like, I don't even know who the fuck did I talk to today? Like what meeting was I on? I'll go on other shows, and I'm so dialed into that conversation. I'll hang up the conversation. It was Charlie Smith. You know Charlie Smith? Phenomenal person, individual.
I don't.
I think 80s, a commercial real estate guy. He's done some crazy shit. Now he's running like a rehab facility and he's got a podcast. He's a phenomenal guy. but we connected through Meltzer and Mike Diamond and that type of group. We met through them, and we got on the phone the first time. Boop, connected, best friends, right? So he was talking about, he's like, man, he's like, I don't even know. He's like, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I've interviewed some crazy guests. You came on, and I don't even know how I'm going to present this. And I'm so grateful for that conversation. I don't remember a thing. I don't remember anything. I just know I was there, but I don't remember what we talked about.
Yeah. You just kind of absorb it. Absolutely. It's cool. Like, and being out of sync with that that's when like you have too much time or you're so rushed. It feels sucks. It sucks. But it's been able, and it's also taking things that, you anticipate are going to take you 2 hours, and you're able to mold it into 25 minutes. Right. Like, it's like that ability to fill the space with what you need it. And I really recommend that book, The Big Leap. He has a beautiful chapter that breaks it down. I think I reread that one chapter like 17 times. So I was like, I want to get this.
It's explicit knowledge. But I swear to God, we're separate. You're explicit knowledge. That's what a book is supposed to do for people, Ella. You don't need to read the whole thing cover to cover. Read what is impactful for you. I would much rather you read that chapter over 100,000 times and maximize that shit. Don't read the whole damn book cover to cover 17,000 times. You know what I mean?
I destroy my books, man. Like, they're highlighted. I rip pages out, and I'll keep them somewhere if I need to reference to them. There's notes in the margins. They're like everything. Like,
I'll write it out everywhere. I got notepads. My phone doesn't leave here. Okay, phone doesn't leave this office.
Yeah,
I have an iPad that goes in the living room, but that's as far as it gets. Yeah, doesn't go to the bedrooms.
Oh, there you go.
You know what I mean? I don't want any type of, but I have notepads and shit everywhere. So sometimes I'm in the shower, dripping wet, jump out the shower, start writing shit down. Okay.
Use it. Use it for what it's good for. They're not meant to stay in pristine condition unless it's like a first edition.
Right. I know we've unpacked a lot, and for the listeners out there, if you've listened to any part of this, I would highly recommend not just listening for the content and listening for what she's saying, what she's not saying. Look at the way that she's able to frame. I think that's the biggest thing that jumped out to me from our conversation. I learned more from you from this conversation about the way that you frame conversations and tell the story when you're framing. What that does, it paints the picture for the other person to visualize and really take in a deeper level on what you're trying to communicate. And they know intuitively the intention behind why you're saying it before you say it. That's what makes you really impactful. I picked up on that today. So,
that's such a massive compliment. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I wouldn't say it if it wasn't true. That's the shit. I was like, wow. I was like, I don't even know when you said it the last time, I was like, I got to tell her now. It's 6 times. So,
yeah. And cool. I mean, and then it really speaks to your interviewing style. You can't soar like an eagle when you're with turkeys. So you interview.
I get it. Yeah. Well, that's what I do. I mean, that's the next phase, I think, of the community that we're building with WINJECT Studios. Monday, I'm going to go live with Justin Shanks, another partner of mine. He's phenomenal. He's one of the top podcasters. We both know, right? It was funny is that I sent him a message. I think it was a couple of days after we had our initial conversation. He's like, yeah, I know her. And I was like, yeah, I know. That's the next thing I was saying. Maybe I should type the whole sentence before we're like finishing our sentences. But we're going live on Monday talking about why it's so important to prepare yourself for your interviews. I look at every interview completely. There's only one question I ask the same. And that's probably the first one. Like, tell them a little bit about yourself, like where you come from. So that way I don't have to really frame your whole bio at the beginning after I do a recording. So, and other than that, I have no idea. I have bullet points, but I'm so present in the conversation. I want to have an impactful conversation. And that's all. That's my intention. That's it. So I appreciate the conversation. That was a pretty good little segment.
Actually, that's so fun. Again, it felt like 5 minutes. So thank you so much for having me.
Bobby, it's my pleasure. But anything you need from me, anything, I do have that conversation coming up. So I'll be in contact with what we spoke about before we hit record in a little green room or whatever we did before this. But where can they find you? I know your shit was locked down, right? So where can they find you? What's your new handle on IG?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me. My handle on IG right now is Operation Swipe Up,
That's
all
right.
one word. So Chris will have it in the notes,
Yeah.
and it's an interim account until I build my personal brand one with the group. You can find me on Facebook under Ella May. You can find me on Clubhouse. My handle is Ella J May. I would say honestly, Instagram's your best bet. And just DM me on there. And lately, I've been super loving Clubhouse, making some cool connections and bouncing around there. So you'll probably see me in there.
Yeah, you popped my cherry on Clubhouse.
I know we're like, I still don't know if anyone's listening. I know that my phone on. I kind of don't even want to look. I was saying to Chris when I started recording, I'm like, dude, what if we just? I mean, I don't know. Maybe like it'll bomb and nobody's listening. But like,
who knows? Who knows? I mean, the whole thing is just turning it on. That's a really good advice for people, though. Listen to that, Ella. What you just said. Turn it on like no one's listening. Who gives a shit if they are, if they are not? And if they are, you're hoping you're giving an impact. Love it.
So I don't know. So like, yeah, I was like, hey, and so he didn't have his iPad, but I'm like, whatever, I'll just open mine, and I know the sound will come through. So I mean, I don't know, like whatever, we'll see what happens. maybe there's 300 people listening right now. Maybe everybody's like requesting the room be checked because it's awful. I don't know. But yeah, so we popped. Well, I think he'd been on before, but I'm excited to see Chris on there more. I know he's going to kill it on there.
Yeah, well, I'll be coming on more. I'm at that first initial phase of WINJECT Studios and the community. From March 1st, that'll be the second leg of the rollout. What we're in right now is like more of the beta testing, and you're part of that group. So the beta testing, making sure the T's are crossed, I's are dotted. There's no barrier entries in the beginning of it. There's the right culture there. So like one heartbeat, one mission, one outcome, that's success overall. That we're beating on that one drum, right? Why it's important. Then we're rolling over to the second phase. That's really taking it to another level. The wait list is there, like 300, 400 shows. It's going to be fucking massive. I'm going to be so excited.
Do you think about this? Okay. Cause I've had this on my mind lately, and I really want the audience to hear this. And this will be quick, cause I know we probably,
no, it's fine. Fine.
But yeah. Okay, cool. I'm good. But, think about this, right? So like, for example, the show that I'm launching, I'm looking to get some, fairly public figure guests, right?
Yeah.
So people that are well known. Think about this angle, right? Like, let's say, for example, I wanted like Gwyneth Paltrow, and so I do what I can do to get in proximity with her team, and I reach out and I say, hey, I would love to create an introduction for Gwyneth Paltrow on Clubhouse. I'm actually launching this podcast. So what we'd be doing is I'd be hosting Gwyneth in a room, and I'd be asking her all about the latest goop, whatever. It's going to be recorded. It'll be released evergreen. We'll give you guys all the content, but it'll also explode Gwyneth's following on Clubhouse and give her an intro to the platform. Think about how much easier that is to book than another interview.
Oh yeah. That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
And on top of that, this is something that I wrote down and I was explaining to the team, right? Is that I was like, all right, so we're going to utilize this thing. You got of course, they're on it already and they're doing their thing. I know where my zone of genius, I need to be there for what I'm doing, right? So, and they're building the communities and whatnot. They'll have the conversation. So I was like, all right, they'll test it out. We'll work from there. And then we have a moderating one and we have mine growing up. And I was like, all right, so when I do go on, I want to make sure that I'm just going to get on there and just do my thing. And now I know exactly what we're doing with WINJECT Studio, so I'm able to frame it properly on that. If I get on there and the message is kind of like unclear, that's not me, and people are going to read that. So, but yeah, what you're doing with the podcast show, what I believe with podcast show, that's a great platform to do your Q&As.
Totally.
Holy shit.
And like what you could do is, record, like you drop live episodes, right?
Yeah. 100%.
So, right. So like you don't edit them is what I mean. So like with me, I fully plan on recording episodes live on Clubhouse. And then if it goes well, to keep it around for, a 20-minute Q&A after. And I tell my listeners, my podcast listeners, hey, if you want to jump in on the Q&A, come hang out in Clubhouse in our club, etc. And everyone, the one biggest complaint with Clubhouse right now is it's not recorded. Well, you put recorded in the room, you can record it and you started the room. So then you still get the evergreen content dropped later. And a lot of these people from Clubhouse are probably checking out your stuff and going to your email list and whatnot. And so you're able to give them the evergreen content. Like, it's just such a beautiful transitional.
I like it because it's not so formal. You know,
exactly.
you don't
need to get ready. You could be like we're in camera right now for.
No, it's like in between. It's like in between. It's like in between. You're you have like lunch. You go for a run or go for a walk or whatever, and you just plug it in. And I listened to I think 2 rooms, and I was like, "Oh, Chris is here," and they're trying to pull me. I was like, "No, pull me up." I was out walking. I was like,
"Superstar."
No, it wasn't that. We were friends. It was a small group. It wasn't like one of those massive groups or anything.
I'm just joking.
Yeah, it was Jeff Lopes, when he popped on, he popped on. You know how when you sign up for it or something, you add them, and then you pop in, and we started adding more people. I was like, no, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. You know, they added me. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I thought it was a major group. I freaked the fuck out for a second. It was so funny. Everyone was dying. I was like, okay, great. I was like, I wasn't ready to talk, man. I was chilling.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Oh my God. I'm so animated sometimes. Anyways, but thank you again. I appreciate you. I look forward to, man, we're just going to catch lightning in a bottle probably a lot. And I'll circle back on some of the other things that we mentioned. But I just really appreciate the conversation. 1, 2, your energy level. That's really rare of someone understanding the frequency, the high level frequency of the energy, and knowing how to transfer that properly and being conscious of the fact of the energy level. Most people don't understand that. So kudos to you.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome. And like I said, guys, y'all be well, be safe, be you. Let's win. Just go win. If you learn anything from this, I guarantee you'll see an impact. Just something. And I'm sure there's a lot there. You're right. My team will put together show notes, links. You'll know how to find her. You'll be easy to find her. So y'all guys, y'all be well, be safe, be you. Take care. Peace out.